Hey guys, tonight we're diving into the story of how medieval Europe spent 600 years getting accidentally high on their breakfast and blaming it on demons. Where your morning toast could make you see angels, lose your toes, or join a spontaneous dance party that lasted until you collapsed, and everyone just thought it was witchcraft. So before you get too comfortable, take a second to like the video and subscribe, but only if you actually enjoy drifting off to tales of civilizations poisoning themselves with bread. Drop a comment telling me where you're listening from and what time it is for you. Now dim those lights and burrow into your blankets, because you're about to be very grateful your breakfast isn't trying to kill you. Congratulations, you've just woken up in 994 AD in a small village in southern France. You're a peasant farmer, which means your entire life revolves around one food: rye bread. Breakfast, rye bread. Lunch, more rye bread. Dinner, you guessed it. And this year's harvest looks weird. The summer was wet and cool, which should have been your first warning sign, but you're a medieval peasant, not a mycologist. Monday morning starts like any other morning in your small life. You're sitting at the wooden table with Anna, your wife, and the kids, Johann, 8 years old and already complaining about morning chores, and little Greta, who's more interested in playing with her bread than eating it. The cottage smells like smoke and porridge. Outside, roosters are making their usual racket. Everything is normal, everything is fine. The bread is dark and dense the way it always is. Rye bread, baked 3 days ago, still good enough. You tear off a chunk, dip it in the porridge, chew. Slightly bitter aftertaste, but that's normal for rye. Anna's already eaten hers, getting ready to head out to the garden. The kids are arguing about something. A typical morning. Boring even. Across the village, your neighbour Dietrich is sitting at his own table doing the exact same thing. You'll learn this later, but right now he's taking his first bites of breakfast and noticing something odd. His feet hurt. Not badly. Just a dull ache. He mentions it to his wife. She tells him he probably walked too much yesterday. He agrees, eats his bread, goes to work. You finish breakfast and head out to the fields. It's harvest season, so there's plenty to do. The work is back-breaking but familiar. You chat with Dietrich in passing. He's limping slightly. "Feet are killing me," he says, but he's smiling. Everyone's feet hurt during harvest. You commiserate. You both get back to work. The sun is hot. The day stretches on. By evening, you're exhausted. Anna has dinner ready. More porridge, more bread, some vegetables from the garden. The kids eat quickly and disappear outside to play before dark. You and Anna eat in comfortable silence. Your hands feel a little tingly, probably just tired from work. You flex your fingers, the tingling fades, you don't think about it again. Tuesday morning, Dietrich isn't in the fields. His wife, Clara, says he can't walk. The pain got worse overnight, she explains, looking worried. His feet are swollen. Red. He says they feel like they're burning from the inside. You offer to visit after work. She nods gratefully. The day feels different. There's an anxiety in the air, though you can't quite place why. In the fields, people are talking. Old Henrik mentions his hands feel strange. The baker's daughter, Marie, was acting odd at dawn, staring at empty corners, talking to herself. Her mother is worried. You file this away. Probably nothing. Probably tired. Everyone's tired during harvest. That evening you visit Dietrich. What you see makes your stomach turn. His feet are grotesquely swollen, the skin an angry red verging on purple. He's sweating, pale, gripping the sides of his bed. "It's like someone's holding torches to my feet," he tells you through gritted teeth. But there's no heat. Just burning. Constant burning. You don't know what to say. You've never seen anything like this. Clara is trying every remedy she knows. Cold water compresses, herb poultices, prayers. Nothing helps. You walk home slowly. The tingling in your hands is back. Stronger now. You tell yourself it's nothing. It has to be nothing. Wednesday arrives with news that spreads through the village like fire. 3 more families are reporting the same symptoms. Burning sensations in extremities. 1 man can't use his hands. A woman says her feet feel like they're being eaten by invisible flames. The priest calls an emergency meeting in the square after morning mass. The square is packed. Everyone's there. Everyone's talking. The priest, Father Wilhelm, raises his hands for silence. God is testing us, he announces, his voice carrying across the crowd. This affliction is divine punishment for our sins. But which sins? Nobody's quite sure. The harvest season was successful. Tithes were paid. What could have angered God? The theories start flying. Old Greta, a different Greta than your daughter. This one's about 70 and mean as a snake, points a gnarled finger at the widow Katharina. She cursed us. I've seen her muttering at dawn. She's in league with dark forces, the crowd murmurs. Katharina, standing at the edge of the square, goes pale. I was praying, she says weakly, just praying. But doubt has been planted. Others blame the water, the air, the alignment of planets. A travelling merchant who passed through last month and might have brought bad luck. Everyone has a theory. Nobody has proof. The healer, a thin, nervous man named Ernst, suggests bloodletting to balance the humours. Several people nod. This makes sense to them. You're not so sure, but what do you know about medicine? That evening's dinner is tense. Anna notices you rubbing your hands. They hurt, she asks. You shrug. Just saw from work. But you're both thinking about Dietrich, about the others. Little Greta asks why everyone's scared. You tell her everything's fine. You're lying and you both know it. Thursday and Friday blur together. More people fall ill. The symptoms vary wildly. Some experience the burning, others start having fits. Marie, the baker's daughter, has progressed from talking to invisible people to full-on conversations with entities only she can see. You pass her in the street and she's arguing with thin air. I can't, she shouts at nothing. Stop asking me. Her mother is beside herself. Young Klaus, the blacksmith's son, collapses during dinner in front of his whole family. His body seizes, muscles contracting violently, limbs flailing. His father has to restrain him to keep him from injuring himself. When the fit finally passes, Klaus is exhausted, terrified, and can't explain what happened. You hear about this from Klaus's father himself, who looks like he aged 10 years overnight. Dietrich's condition worsens. His feet are now black, actually black like burned wood. You visit him again and immediately wish you hadn't. The smell is terrible, rot and something else, something sweet and wrong. His wife is crying. The healer tried bloodletting, it didn't help, it made him weaker. Dietrich is delirious with pain, barely recognizing you. Make it stop, he begs. Please make it stop. You can't. Nobody can. Friday evening, your son Johann complains that his legs feel funny. Your heart stops. Anna's face drains of colour. Funny how? You ask, trying to keep your voice steady. Tingly, he says, like ants crawling on them. You and Anna exchange a look. This is how it starts. This is how it started for everyone else. That night neither of you sleep. You lie awake listening to Johann breathe, praying to any god who'll listen that your son will be spared. Your own hands are worse now, constant tingling, occasional sharp pains. You haven't told Anna about the other symptom, the shadows in your peripheral vision that move when you look directly at them. That's probably just exhaustion. That's what you tell yourself. Saturday morning brings another village meeting. The priest performs a public exorcism on Marie, right there in the square. She screams for hours. The whole village watches, horrified and transfixed. The priest shouts prayers, splashes holy water, commands the demons to leave. Marie convulses, weeps, begs for it to stop. When it's finally over, she's exhausted, but no better. The demons, if that's what they are, remain. The healer admits he has no answers. Father Wilhelm has no answers beyond pray harder. Old Greta is still insisting Katharina cursed everyone and should be punished. The widow has stopped coming to the square. She's terrified, and rightfully so. Mobs have formed over less. You notice something strange. The Miller's family is fine. Completely fine. So is the Smith's family. Except for Klaus, but his father and mother and sisters are untouched. The pattern makes no sense. Some households are devastated, others are perfectly healthy. Why? Sunday, you attend Mass. Everyone does. Partly from faith, partly from fear that missing Mass will make things worse. During the service, your vision goes strange. The colours are too bright. The candles seem to pulse with light. You see your dead father standing in the corner of the church. You know he's not real. He's been dead for 5 years. But he looks so solid, so present. He's watching you with sad eyes. You blink hard, he's gone. Just a trick of the exhausted mind. That's what you tell yourself. But your hands are shaking so badly you can barely hold the prayer book. Anna notices, takes your hand, squeezes. You squeeze back. After Mass, you find out Henrik lost 2 toes. Just fell off, Clara reports, with a mixture of horror and resignation. He was putting on his shoes and they came off with his toes still inside. He's in shock. His wife is in shock. You're in shock just hearing about it. That night you eat dinner, same bread you've been eating this batch all week, and watch your children. Johann seems okay. The tingling hasn't gotten worse. Greta is fine, bouncing around like always. Maybe she'll be spared. Maybe you all will. But as you lie in bed that night, your hands burning now, really burning, and the shadows dancing across the ceiling in patterns that feel almost intentional, you know something is very, very wrong. And whatever it is, it's not over. It's just beginning. You close your eyes and see angels. Beautiful, terrifying angels with too many eyes and wings made of light. You know they're not real, but they feel real. They feel so real. Tomorrow is Monday again. 1 week since this all started. 1 week since everything was normal. You wonder if normal will ever come back. You wonder if you'll survive long enough to find out. Week 2 turns your village into the world's worst debate club, where everyone has a theory and all of them are wrong. The priest insists it's demons. The healer swears it's an imbalance of humours. Old Greta is absolutely convinced it's witchcraft, specifically perpetrated by Widow Katharina, who has the audacity to live alone and own a cat. Someone suggests it might be bad air. Another person blames the alignment of the planets. Your neighbour Jakob is pretty sure it's divine punishment for that time the village didn't pay full tithe 3 years ago. Everyone has an opinion. Nobody has a clue. You're sitting through yet another village meeting where Father Wilhelm is explaining his demon theory with the confidence of a man who has never been right about anything medical in his entire life. Meanwhile, you're trying very hard not to mention that your dead father has been showing up in your peripheral vision offering unsolicited farming advice. This seems like information that would not help your case. The last thing you need is Father Wilhelm deciding you're possessed and organising another 6-hour exorcism. You've seen what those do to people. Spoiler, nothing helpful. Dietrich's wife Clara stands up and suggests maybe it's something in the water. This is actually not a terrible guess by medieval standards, but it's immediately shot down because the Miller's family drinks the same water and they're fine. Well, except for the Miller's youngest son, but he's always been a bit odd, so that doesn't count apparently. The logic is airtight if you don't think about it too hard. Thomas, your eventual travel companion, has started openly discussing his hallucinations with an attitude that can only be described as making the best of it. While everyone else is terrified of their visions, Thomas treats his demons like annoying roommates. The tall one with horns keeps telling me to go north, he announces to the group. But I'm pretty sure he doesn't know what he's talking about, because last time I listened to him, I walked into a fence. Several people crossed themselves. Thomas shrugs. You're starting to like Thomas. The competing theories get increasingly creative as the week progresses. Someone blames a travelling merchant who passed through last month. He had a suspicious accent and possibly evil intentions. Someone else suggests it might be a curse from the Jews, which doesn't even make sense because the nearest Jewish community is 2 days away and has literally never interacted with your village, but facts aren't really driving this conversation. Old Greta pivots from blaming Katharina to blaming Katharina's mother, who's been dead for a decade. Generational curse, Greta explains with absolute certainty. Nobody can prove her wrong, which she takes as proof she's right. Meanwhile, Marie, the baker's daughter who's been having intense spiritual experiences, has become a local celebrity of sorts. She spends her days in the church having what she describes as conversations with angels. From your perspective, having also started seeing things, you're about 60% sure Marie is just really, really high on contaminated bread. But you can't say that because A, you don't know what high means yet. That won't be a concept for another 600 years. And B, suggesting the baker's daughter isn't actually blessed by God seems like a fast track to being the next person blamed for the curse. Father Wilhelm performs an exorcism on Marie that lasts so long you actually leave in the middle to go have lunch and come back and it's still going. The priest is sweating through his robes, shouting prayers in Latin. Marie is responding in what might be tongues, or might just be exhaustion-induced gibberish. The whole village is crammed into the church watching, like it's a particularly dramatic theatre production. After 6 hours, 6 entire hours, the exorcism concludes. Marie is exhausted, hoarse, and still talking to angels. The priest declares it a partial success. You're not sure what the success part was, but nobody wants to question him. Your son Johann's symptoms have progressed to the point where he's convinced there are bugs under his skin. Not on his skin, under it. He can feel them moving, he insists. You check constantly. There are no bugs. There are never any bugs. But Johann is so certain that you start to doubt your own eyes. Maybe there are bugs and you just can't see them. Maybe that's part of the curse. You're losing your grip on reality and you know it, which somehow makes it worse. Anna catches you having a full conversation with your dead mother one evening. To be fair to you, your mother looks very real and is giving you genuinely good advice about crop rotation. Anna asks who you're talking to. You say, nobody, and your mother gives you a disappointed look before fading away. Anna doesn't press the issue. She's got her own problems. Yesterday she was convinced the bread was watching her. She's probably right, metaphorically speaking, but explaining that the bread is actually the problem would require knowledge of germ theory and toxicology that won't exist for centuries. The village splits into increasingly specific factions. There's the definitely demons camp led by Father Wilhelm, the probably witchcraft camp led by old Greta, who's now expanded her suspect list to include anyone who's ever looked at her funny. The bad humours obviously camp led by Ernst the healer, who's responding to his complete inability to help anyone by doubling down on bloodletting, and a small, quiet group who think maybe it's something in the environment but can't figure out what. Nobody, and I cannot stress this enough, nobody suspects the food. You're literally eating breakfast every morning going, wow, this mysterious plague sure is weird. I wonder what's causing it. While actively consuming the cause. The bread is right there, you're holding it, you're chewing it, you're feeding it to your children, and it never, not once, crosses your mind that the problem might be the single most fundamental staple of your entire diet. Why would it? Bread is life. Bread is blessed by the church. Bread is the thing that keeps you from starving. The bread can't be the enemy. That would be crazy. Henrik loses his fingers one by one throughout the week, and each time it happens a new theory emerges. First finger, definitely the curse intensifying. Second finger, God's judgment for some unknown sin. Third finger, obviously the planets are in retrograde. By the fifth finger, people have mostly stopped theorizing and started just feeling bad for Henrik. His daughter is beside herself. The healer suggests cauterizing the stumps. This goes as well as you'd expect, which is to say, poorly, with lots of screaming and zero improvement to the underlying condition. Dietrich's situation with his feet has progressed to the point where the healer takes everything below the ankle. The procedure happens in Dietrich's cottage with half the village crowded outside listening to the screams. Afterward, Dietrich is fitted with crude crutches and given a strong drink and told he's lucky to be alive. He doesn't feel lucky. You wouldn't either. But here's the thing. He is lucky, relatively speaking. At least he's still alive. Young Klaus, the blacksmith's son, isn't. Klaus has a seizure during dinner and never wakes up. He's 12. The funeral is terrible in the way all funerals for children are terrible, but it's made worse by the fact that nobody understands why it happened. Father Wilhelm talks about God's mysterious plans. Klaus's father looks like he aged 20 years overnight. The whole village is there because everyone loved Klaus, and because everyone is terrified they're next. You hold Johann's hand during the burial and try not to think about the fact that your son has been scratching his arms raw for 3 days. By the end of week 2, the village has tried everything. Prayer circles, herbal remedies, bloodletting, so much bloodletting, exorcisms, more prayer, burying various objects under the full moon, wearing protective amulets, avoiding certain people who might be spreading the curse, and one memorable afternoon where someone suggested everyone walk backwards 3 times around the village well. Nothing works. Nothing even sort of works. People keep getting sicker. That's when you hear about the monastery, St. Anthony's, a week's journey south, where monks supposedly cure this exact affliction. Miracles, Clara tells you, her eyes desperate. They perform miracles. You're not particularly religious, but you're also currently having regular conversations with dead relatives and watching your hands shake uncontrollably, so miracles sound pretty good actually. The decision to go is easy. Staying means watching yourself and your family slowly fall apart. Going means maybe, possibly, potentially, there's a chance of recovery. Anna will stay with the children. Johann needs her, and little Greta is still mysteriously fine. You'll go with whoever else is healthy enough to travel. You pack a blanket, some dried food, a water skin, the clothes on your back, and bread. You pack bread for the journey because you need food, and bread is what you have. The same bread that's been poisoning you, that's poisoning everyone, that's the root cause of this entire nightmare. You pack it carefully, making sure you have enough for a week on the road. The irony is so thick you could cut it with a knife, but you don't see it. Nobody sees it. The bread is innocent. The bread is necessary. The bread is definitely not trying to kill you. You kiss Anna goodbye, hug your children, and tell them you'll be back soon. Johann makes you promise. You promise, even though you have no idea if it's true. Little Greta asks why you're leaving. You don't have a good answer. How do you explain to a 6-year-old that you're going to find monks who might be able to stop the fire in your hands and the dead people in your vision? Dietrich is coming with you, hobbling on his crutches, determined to try. Henrik is coming, though his daughter will have to help him since his hands are gone. Thomas is coming, along with his demon friends who apparently also need a vacation. Margaret, a widow your age, is coming despite the fact that every step is agony. And young Peter, barely 15, whose hands shake so badly he can barely hold anything. 6 people, 1 desperate pilgrimage, 0 understanding of what's actually wrong, and enough contaminated bread in your packs to keep you all sick for the entire journey. You leave at dawn. The village watches you go. In your pack, next to the bread that's slowly killing you, you've packed hope. It's the only thing that's free, and the only thing you have left. Behind you, the village continues its slow spiral. Ahead of you, a week of walking and a monastery that supposedly works miracles. In your stomach, the poison you ate for breakfast. Because what else would you eat? If this were a story, this is where someone would figure it out. Someone would make the connection, realise the bread is the problem, and save everyone. But this isn't a story. This is 994 AD. Germ theory won't exist for another 800 years. The scientific method is centuries away. You're a peasant farmer with a third-grade education, and the single most important clue literally sitting in your pack, and you'll walk right past the answer for another week. But hey, at least you're trying. That's got to count for something. Day one of your pilgrimage begins with the immediate realization that travelling while mildly poisoned and hallucinating is significantly harder than staying home while mildly poisoned and hallucinating. At least at home you had walls. Out here on the road, it's just you. 5 other people in various states of disrepair, and the growing suspicion that this might have been a terrible idea. Dietrich is struggling with the crutches. Turns out walking without feet is difficult. Who knew? Every few minutes he needs to stop and rest, which is fine because Margaret needs to stop too. Her feet are burning so badly that each step looks like torture. Henrik can't carry anything because he has no hands, so his daughter is lugging both their packs. Peter's hand shakes so much he keeps dropping things. Thomas is arguing with someone who isn't there about which direction to go, and you. You're seeing colours that definitely don't exist in nature, and trying very hard to act normal about it. This is your fellowship. You're like the world's saddest adventure party, except instead of fighting dragons, you're fighting the urge to sit down and never get up again. The demon says we should take the left path, Thomas announces cheerfully on day 2. Everyone stops. You all look at Thomas. Thomas looks back, completely serious. He's been pretty reliable so far, he adds. Yesterday he warned me about that pothole. Thomas, you say carefully, we're taking the right path. That's the road to the monastery. That's what I told him, Thomas gestures at the empty air beside him. But he insists the left path has better scenery. He pauses, listening to nothing. Okay, he admits the left path might also lead to a cursed forest, but he thinks it would be character building. You take the right path. Thomas shrugs and tells his demon they'll try the cursed forest next time. You're not entirely sure Thomas is joking. You're not entirely sure you're not also talking to things that aren't there, so who are you to judge? By day 3, the group has developed a strange camaraderie born of shared weirdness. You're all experiencing different symptoms, which leads to the world's most surreal conversation around the evening campfire. I've got the burning feet, Margaret announces, like she's introducing herself at a support group. Constant fire, day and night. Can't even feel the cold anymore. Lucky, Dietrich mutters. I've got no feet. Everything below the ankle is just gone. I see demons, Thomas offers. 3 of them regularly, and sometimes a 4th one who I think is just visiting. They're mostly friendly. The horned one gives terrible advice, but the one with wings is surprisingly helpful. Everyone looks at you. Dead relatives, you admit. My father, mostly. Sometimes my mother. Yesterday my uncle showed up and he's been gone for 15 years. Do they talk to you? Peter asks, fascinated. Constantly. My father won't shut up about crop rotation. Henrik holds up his stumps philosophically. At least you lot can still hold things. I see angels, Peter says quietly. Beautiful ones. Terrifying ones. Sometimes I can't tell if they're blessing me or threatening me. There's a moment of silence as everyone processes this. Then Thomas speaks up. Anyone else think it's weird that we're all experiencing completely different symptoms from the same whatever this is? Curse, Margaret says. Demons, Peter counters. Divine punishment, Henrik suggests. Bad humours, you offer, not really believing it. Thomas nods slowly. Right, obviously. That makes total sense. He pauses. My demon says it's probably the stars. Your demon can shut up, Margaret snaps, but she's smiling slightly. You pass other pilgrims on the road heading to the same monastery, and you realise this is basically medieval medical tourism. There's a whole economy built around St. Anthony's fire. Vendors selling protective amulets that definitely don't work. A man offering a special prayer service for only 2 coins. Someone else selling blessed bread that will protect you from curses, which is ironic in ways you can't even begin to explain. You meet a family from 3 villages over. The father has the burning hands like you. The mother sees things. Angels, demons, sometimes both at once. Their teenage son has seizures. They're also heading to the monastery, also desperate, also carrying bread for the journey. You share a meal together one evening, combining your supplies. The bread you share has that same slightly bitter taste. Nobody mentions it. What would be the point? Heard they work miracles there, the father tells you. Real miracles. God's work. That's what we heard too, you reply, not mentioning that you're currently watching your dead mother stand behind him making a face at his cooking technique. The journey becomes a blur of walking, resting, walking again. The symptoms don't improve. If anything, they get worse. Your hands are shaking more. The visions are more frequent. Thomas's demons apparently multiply. He's up to 5 regular ones now, plus occasional guests. Peter has an entire conversation with the Archangel Michael, who apparently has very specific opinions about the proper way to set up camp. Margaret develops a coping strategy of just narrating everything she's doing out loud. I'm walking now. Still walking. Taking another step. Feet still on fire. This is fine. Everything is fine. It's either very sad or very funny, and you can't quite decide which. Henrik's daughter, her name is Anna, which confuses you because that's also your wife's name, turns out to be incredibly practical. She's the only one not experiencing symptoms, which means she's the only one with a functioning grip on reality. She becomes the de facto leader, organising rest stops, rationing food, and occasionally talking everyone out of following Thomas's demon suggestions. No, we're not taking a detour to visit the allegedly haunted mill, Anna says firmly on day 5. But the demon says, I don't care what the demon says, Thomas. We're going to the monastery. Directly to the monastery. No detours. He's very persuasive, Thomas argues weakly. So am I. Keep walking. The landscape around you is beautiful, though you're not always sure if what you're seeing is real or hallucination. Rolling hills that shimmer with colours that might not exist. Trees that seem to breathe. A sky that occasionally has too many stars. You ask Anna if the sunset looks weird to her. She says it looks normal. You decide not to mention that you're seeing geometric patterns in the clouds. Day 6 brings rain, which is miserable for everyone, but especially for Dietrich, whose crutches keep slipping in the mud. You all huddle under a large tree, wet and cold, and increasingly convinced that this journey will never end. Thomas tries to lighten the mood by asking his demons for weather predictions. According to the horned one, it will rain for 3 more days. According to the winged one, it'll clear up by morning. According to the new one that just showed up, weather is a social construct and we should simply choose not to perceive the rain. That last one is useless, Thomas announces. They're all useless, Margaret points out. Fair, Thomas admits. You eat your evening bread ration. Same bitter taste. Same slight feeling of wrongness that you can't quite place. Henrik can't feed himself, so his daughter helps him. Peter's hands are shaking so badly that he drops his piece 3 times before he can get it to his mouth. Dietrich jokes that at least he doesn't have to worry about his feet hurting from walking. He doesn't have feet to hurt. It's dark humour, but it's all you've got. That night you dream of bread, mountains of it, loaves upon loaves, all watching you with eyes that don't exist. You wake up convinced that the dream means something important. By morning, you've forgotten it entirely. Day 7. The monastery appears in the distance and the relief is overwhelming. You made it. Against all odds, dragging your broken bodies across the countryside, eating the poison that's slowly killing you, hallucinating your way through a week of travel. You made it. The monastery is huge, impressive, obviously well funded from all the desperate people showing up with donations. The walls are thick stone, the gates are ornate, and you can see monks moving around in their neat robes. It looks organised, professional, like they know what they're doing. "We're saved," Peter whispers. You want to believe him. You want to believe that whatever they do here, prayers, rituals, miracles, will work. You want to believe that you'll go home to Anna and the children cured, healthy, normal again. You don't mention that you've been seeing angels mixed with your dead relatives for the past 2 days, or that this morning you were pretty sure the bread was talking to you. These seem like details that can wait until after you're cured. The gates open. Brother Andreas, who you'll learn has the most incredible job security in medieval Europe, greets you with practiced sympathy. He's seen this 1,000 times, literally 1,000 times. You're not special. You're just the latest batch of desperate pilgrims showing up with the same mysterious affliction, the same confusion, the same hope. "Welcome," he says. "You're safe now. St. Anthony will provide." You want to believe him. You're going to believe him. You have to believe him, because if this doesn't work, you're out of options. The monastery doors close behind you. Somewhere in your pack, wrapped carefully in cloth, is the rest of your travel bread. You'll probably finish it tomorrow. The poison that got you here will follow you inside, because why wouldn't it? You don't know it's poison. You don't know anything except that you hurt, you're scared, and you're desperate for help. The monks will help you. They absolutely will, just not for the reasons anyone thinks. Brother Andreas leads your group through the monastery, with the efficient grace of someone who's done this exact intake procedure more times than he can count. You're assigned to a room, an actual room with walls and a roof and everything, which already feels like luxury after a week on the road. There are beds, actual beds, with straw mattresses that haven't been rained on. This is already better than home. "First," Brother Andreas announces, "we pray. You pray. You pray for so long your knees start to hurt. Then you pray some more." The monks are very thorough about prayer. They show you relics, bones of saints, splinters of the true cross, a piece of cloth that supposedly touched St. Anthony himself. You're instructed to kiss them. You kiss them. Thomas kisses them and whispers something to his demon. The demon apparently approves. "Now," Brother Andreas continues, "we feed you. You must regain your strength." He gestures to a monk carrying a tray. On it, bread. Your heart sinks slightly. More bread. You've been eating bread this whole time and it hasn't helped, but you're not about to argue with monks who are trying to save your life. You take a bite. It's different. Lighter. Less dense. The colour is strange. Paler than what you're used to. It doesn't have that bitter aftertaste. You're so focused on the prayers and the relics and the general atmosphere of holiness that you don't even think about it. It's just bread. Different bread, but still bread. "This is wheat bread," Brother Andreas explains casually. "We find our patients respond better to a lighter diet during recovery. Wheat bread. The stuff rich people eat. You've had it maybe twice in your entire life. It's expensive. The monastery must be very successful to give it out to patients. You feel grateful, blessed even. You don't connect the dots because how could you? The dots won't be connected for another 600 years. Day 3 at the monastery, something strange happens. You feel better. Not cured, but better. The tingling in your hands has decreased. You slept through the entire night without seeing your dead father even once. When you mention this to Brother Andreas, he smiles knowingly. St. Anthony is working through us, he says. His grace is powerful. You want to argue that maybe it's not St. Anthony, maybe it's something else, but you can't figure out what that something else would be. You're praying multiple times a day, touching relics, drinking blessed water, eating wheat bread, sleeping in a clean room. Which of these things is helping? All of them? None of them? There's no way to know. You decide it must be the prayers. That makes sense. That fits with everything you've been taught about how the world works. By day 5, the improvement is undeniable. Your hands are steady. The visions have stopped completely. You feel almost normal. Thomas reports that 2 of his demons have left. They said their work here is done, which is honestly pretty presumptuous considering I never asked them to come in the first place. Peter hasn't seen an angel in 3 days. Margaret's feet still hurt, but the burning sensation is fading. The monks document everything meticulously. Another miracle, another soul saved by St. Anthony's grace. Brother Andreas writes it down in his ledger alongside hundreds of other cases. The pattern is clear to him. People arrive sick, they pray, they recover. Prayer works, St. Anthony works, the monastery works. It's a miracle factory and business is booming. You watch the monks prepare meals one day and notice they have separate storage for different types of grain. The wheat is kept in sealed containers in a dry room. The rye, there is some rye, they're not made of money, is inspected carefully before use. You don't think anything of it. You're just noting that monks are very organised. Of course they are. They're monks. Henrik is recovering too, though his hands are obviously still gone. They're not growing back. That's not the kind of miracle that happens here. But he's not getting worse, which is something. His daughter cries with relief. Dietrich, minus his feet, is also stabilising. The burning has stopped spreading up his legs. He'll never walk normally again, but he's alive. That counts as a win. Not everyone recovers. There's a man in the room next to yours who arrived 2 days after you, and his condition is too far advanced. You hear the monks praying over him late at night. By morning, he's gone. Brother Andreas explains sadly that St. Anthony calls some souls home rather than healing them. You accept this because what else can you do? The man was in bad shape. At least he died somewhere peaceful, with prayers being said. Meanwhile, back in your village, which you learn about from other pilgrims who arrive throughout your stay, things have gotten weirder. Father Wilhelm performed a total of 14 exorcisms in the 2 weeks since you left. None of them worked. Ernst the healer has bloodlet so many people that the village is running low on both blood and patience. Old Greta successfully convinced the village to exile 3 more people for witchcraft, none of whom were actually witches because witches aren't real, and also that's not what's causing this. A new arrival from your region tells you that Marie, the baker's daughter, is still locked in the church talking to angels. She's been there for a month now. She eats. They bring her food. But she doesn't really interact with reality anymore. She's just gone. Lost somewhere in her own mind, having conversations with entities that only she can perceive. You feel terrible for her. You also feel grateful that you got out when you did. The new arrival also mentions that your village tried a new solution. They walked around the well backwards 17 times at midnight, while carrying lit candles and singing psalms. This did exactly as much good as you'd expect, which is none. Someone tripped in the dark and dropped their candle in the well, so now they have a different problem. You hear about other outbreaks, other villages, other desperate attempts at solutions. A town 3 days north tried burying a live toad at a crossroads during a full moon. Didn't work. A village to the east invited a travelling wise woman who made everyone drink a mixture of herbs that caused violent digestive issues but did not, in fact, cure anyone. A monastery, not this one, a different one, tried treating their afflicted monks by making them fast for 40 days. Several monks died. The rest were just hungry and still sick. The solutions people try range from earnest to absurd. Wearing garlic around your neck, sleeping with your feet pointed north, avoiding eye contact with black cats, drinking water blessed by 7 different priests, eating only white foods, wearing red clothing, not wearing red clothing, carrying iron nails, burying your fingernail clippings in consecrated ground, and one memorable suggestion to paint yourself blue and run through the woods at dawn. None of it works. None of it even sort of works. But people are desperate, so they try everything, and occasionally someone gets better around the same time they try something, and then that becomes the cure that spreads to other villages where it predictably fails. The thing is, the monastery is the only place where people reliably improve. Everyone knows this. Pilgrims come from across Europe because St. Anthony's actually works. The monks have a success rate that would be impressive even by modern standards. They're basically running medieval Europe's most effective hospital, and they have absolutely no idea why it works. They think it's the prayers, it's not the prayers. They think it's the relics, it's not the relics. They think it's St. Anthony's divine intervention. It's not divine intervention, it's the wheat bread. It's literally just switching from contaminated rye bread to clean wheat bread. That's the entire miracle. Remove the poison, and people stop being poisoned. Revolutionary. But the monks can't know this because germ theory doesn't exist yet. Toxicology doesn't exist yet. The scientific method doesn't exist yet. All they know is, people arrive sick, we pray and feed them, they get better. They're doing everything right while completely misunderstanding why it works. They're accidentally running the most successful medical treatment in Europe based on a total misapprehension of cause and effect. The monastery makes a fortune from this. Grateful patients donate money, land, livestock, whatever they can spare. The monastery expands. More buildings, more monks, more capacity to treat more patients. It's a self-sustaining cycle of accidental medical success. And it's all built on wheat bread and prayer, in that order, though nobody realises the order matters. By week 2, you're cleared to go home. Brother Andreas gives you a blessing, some prayers written on parchment, and a small loaf of wheat bread for the journey, a gift from St. Anthony. You're overwhelmed with gratitude. You thank the monks profusely. You promise to light a candle for St. Anthony every week. You mean it sincerely. Thomas is also leaving. His demons are apparently gone. They said they had other appointments, and he seems almost disappointed to see them go. They were annoying, but they were company, he admits. Margrethe is going home too, her feet finally bearable. Peter's hands have stopped shaking. Henrik's daughter is just relieved her father is stable. Dietrich will stay longer. The monks can fit him for better mobility aids now that he's healthier. You say goodbye to the monks who saved your life. You say goodbye to the monastery that worked miracles. You say goodbye to St. Anthony, whose grace delivered you from affliction. You have no idea that you're thanking the wrong thing entirely. The journey home is easier than the journey there, mostly because you're not actively being poisoned anymore. You still have the wheat bread from the monastery. You eat it sparingly, trying to make it last. When you run out 3 days from home, you have to buy bread from a village along the way. It's rye bread. Dark, dense, with that bitter taste. You eat it because you're hungry. By the time you reach your village, your hands are tingling again. Just slightly. Just enough to notice. You tell yourself it's nothing. Probably just tired from the journey. It's definitely not the bread. The bread is fine. You were cured by St. Anthony. The bread has nothing to do with it. You're wrong, of course, but you'll never know that. Nobody will know that for another 600 years, and in the meantime, the monastery will keep saving lives with wheat bread and prayers. The village will keep trying increasingly absurd cures, and somewhere, in a grain storage shed, the same fungus that caused all this sits and waits for the right weather to bloom again. But hey, you're home. You're alive. Anna cries when she sees you. Johann is better. The village finally got rid of all the old rye and switched to barley for a while. Little Greta is still fine. Marie is still in the church. Klaus is still gone. Katrina never came back. Life goes on. You light a candle for St. Anthony every week, just like you promised. You tell everyone about the miracle, about the prayers and the relics and the holy intervention that saved your life. You become a local celebrity of sorts, the man who was cured by St. Anthony. And next harvest, when the weather is wet and cool, and the rye comes in with those weird dark bits that everyone ignores because they're just discoloured grain, right? Nothing to worry about. You eat the bread like you always have, because the bread is fine. The bread was never the problem. You're sure of it. After all, you were cured by a miracle. What else could it have been? Let's fast forward, because your story, while compelling, is basically the same story that plays out thousands of times across Europe over the next several centuries. People get sick, villages panic, theories fly, monks accidentally cure people with wheat bread. Everyone credits God, the cycle repeats. It's like the world's longest running medical mystery, where the answer is literally sitting on the table the entire time. Jump to the 1600s. Europe has been dealing with St. Anthony's fire for roughly 600 years at this point, and a few doctors are starting to notice patterns. A French physician named Dr. Thuillier is investigating an outbreak in Sologne, and something clicks in his brain. He's looking at the sick people. He's looking at the healthy people. He's looking at what they're eating, and he sees it. The sick people all have one thing in common. They're eating bread made from rye that has these weird, dark, spur-like things in it. Dr. Thuillier publishes his findings. The spurs are dangerous, he writes. Burn the contaminated grain. This is a revolutionary observation. This is the answer everyone's been looking for 6 centuries. The medical community's response. Bread can't be poisonous, you absolute lunatic. Because think about it from their perspective. Bread is blessed by the church. Bread is the foundation of civilization. Bread is literally the thing keeping people alive. The idea that bread, could be the source of a plague that's been terrorizing Europe for generations. That's crazy talk. Dr. Thuillier might as well have suggested that air is toxic or water is cursed. His report is largely ignored. But a few people listen. A few doctors start paying attention. By the late 1600s, more physicians are making the connection. There's a German doctor who notices that removing the dark spurs before milling seems to help. There's another French doctor who documents that wet harvest years correlate with more cases. The evidence slowly accumulates like the world's most frustrating puzzle, where every piece is right there, but nobody wants to admit they see the picture. The resistance is strong. The church pushes back because if bread can be poisonous, what does that say about divine providence? Farmers resist because if they have to throw away contaminated grain, that's a significant economic loss. And regular people resist because the alternative explanation, that they've been cursing their neighbours and exiling suspected witches for a problem that was just fungus, is too uncomfortable to accept. By the 1700s, enough evidence has piled up that the scientific community finally, grudgingly, admits, okay, yes, fine, ergot causes St. Anthony's fire. It only took 600 years, thousands of unnecessary suffering, countless amputations, multiple witch hunts, and one very persistent French doctor. But we got there eventually. Gold star for humanity. Agricultural practices slowly improve. Farmers learn to recognise infected grain and remove it before milling. Some regions switch to growing wheat or other crops less susceptible to ergot. Storage methods improve. Grain inspection becomes a thing. Outbreaks become less frequent. The mystery that plagued medieval Europe for centuries is finally, slowly, being solved. But the story doesn't end there. Oh no. Ergot has a plot twist coming that nobody sees coming. Switzerland. A chemist named Albert Hofmann is working for Sandoz Pharmaceuticals, synthesizing various compounds from ergot alkaloids because they've figured out that ergot has medical applications in carefully controlled doses. He's trying to develop a respiratory and circulatory stimulant. He creates a compound called lysergic acid diethylamide, LSD for short. He synthesizes it, labels it, files it away. Nothing interesting happens. 5 years later, Hoffman decides to revisit LSD. He's synthesizing another batch when he accidentally absorbs a tiny amount through his skin. What happens next becomes legendary in the history of psychopharmacology and also the history of really weird bicycle rides. Hoffman starts feeling strange. Reality begins bending in ways reality is not supposed to bend. Colours are breathing. Time is negotiable. His sense of self is doing things that selves should not do. He decides he needs to go home. He gets on his bicycle. Cars are restricted because of the war. And rides home through Basel while experiencing the first documented LSD trip in history. His lab notes from that day are incredible. I perceived an uninterrupted stream of fantastic images of extraordinary plasticity and vividness, and accompanied by an intense, kaleidoscope-like play of colours. He's basically describing what medieval peasants experience for centuries, except Hoffman knows he's on substances and it will end. Medieval people thought they were actually seeing angels and demons. Big difference. This discovery changes everything we know about medieval history. Suddenly historians are looking at old records with completely new eyes. All those mystical visions, all those religious experiences, all those reports of people seeing angels and demons and having divine revelations. Some of them, not all but some, were probably just people accidentally tripping on contaminated bread. The Salem witch trials get particular attention. In 1976, a behavioural psychologist named Linda Caparel publishes a paper suggesting ergot poisoning as a possible explanation for the initial accusations. The theory is controversial. Some historians love it. Others argue it oversimplifies complex social and political dynamics. The debate continues today. But the basic facts are intriguing. Salem village had the right climate for ergot, relied heavily on rye, and the initial accusers showed symptoms consistent with convulsive ergotism. Were those girls having fits because of demonic possession, historians now ask? Or were they just really, really high on contaminated grain? We'll never know for sure. The bread is long gone. But it's a question that would never have occurred to anyone before Hoffman's bicycle ride. Medieval religious visions are also being reassessed. That monk who saw the Virgin Mary and started a whole religious movement? Maybe he was blessed with divine sight. Or maybe his monastery's communion wafers were made with the ergot-contaminated rye flour. That peasant girl who claimed angels spoke to her? Genuine miracle or accidental ergot trip? We can't know, but the fact that we're now asking the question changes everything. Modern medicine starts using ergot derivatives for all sorts of treatments. Migraines. Ergot compounds can help by constricting blood vessels in the brain. The same mechanism that caused problems in medieval times, just carefully controlled. Parkinson's disease. Certain ergot derivatives are useful. Inducing labour. Ergot alkaloids cause uterine contractions. The same thing that caused miscarriages in medieval women, but again, carefully controlled dosing makes all the difference. The thing that terrorised Europe for centuries is now a valuable pharmaceutical tool. The dose makes the poison, as they say. Medieval people were getting random, uncontrolled doses. Modern patients get precise, measured doses. It's the difference between chaos and medicine. Ergot poisoning hasn't completely disappeared, by the way. There was an outbreak in 1951, in Pont-Saint-Esprit, France. Over 250 people affected. Mass hallucinations, convulsions, panic in the streets. People jumping out of windows trying to escape invisible attackers. This is 1951. We have cars, antibiotics, penicillin, the atomic bomb, and we still got by contaminated bread. The cause? A local baker used rye flour contaminated with ergot. Same problem that plagued medieval Europe, still happening in the 20th century. The outbreak was quickly identified and contained. We know what ergot is now, but it's a stark reminder that the problem never fully went away. It's just managed much better. Today, in developed countries, we have extensive food safety infrastructure specifically designed to prevent this. Grain is tested before it reaches consumers. Ergot levels are measured in parts per million. Contaminated batches are destroyed or diverted to non-food use. Agricultural practices minimise fungal growth. Storage conditions are controlled. The entire system exists because of centuries of people accidentally poisoning themselves at breakfast. Every food safety regulation, every grain inspection, every agricultural practice designed to prevent fungal contamination, they're all responses to ergot. They're all because medieval people spent 600 years eating contaminated bread and suffering for it. We learned, eventually. It just took a really long time. The lesson here isn't just medieval times were wild, though they absolutely were. The lesson is that it took humanity centuries, literal centuries, to solve a problem that seems obvious in hindsight. A fungus grows on grain. People eat the grain. People get sick. Stop eating the contaminated grain, people stop getting sick. Simple. But without the scientific method, without germ theory, without any framework for understanding that microscopic organisms can produce toxic compounds, medieval people were completely unable to make that connection. They tried everything else first: demons, curses, witchcraft, divine punishment, bad air, misaligned planets. They tried everything except maybe check the food. We solved ergot poisoning not through divine revelation or sudden genius, but through centuries of observation, documentation, hypothesis testing, and the slow, painful development of scientific thinking. Every doctor who documented symptoms, every researcher who studied the fungus, every farmer who learned to recognize and remove contaminated grain, they all contributed to solving a mystery that affected thousands. So the next time you eat bread without worrying that it might make you hallucinate or have problems, take a moment to appreciate the incredible infrastructure that keeps you safe. The agricultural science that prevents fungal infections, the quality control that tests for contamination, the food safety regulations that ensure your rye bread contains 0% ergot and 100% not going to make you see demons. These aren't just bureaucratic annoyances. They're the systems that prevent you from living through what you experienced in 994. They're why your breakfast is boring and safe, instead of exciting and potentially hallucinogenic. They're why St. Anthony's fire is a historical curiosity instead of a current medical emergency. Medieval people did their best with what they knew. They prayed, they tried treatments, they built hospitals, they documented symptoms. They just didn't have the tools to understand that the answer was literally in their hands every time they sat down to eat. They were living in a horror movie where the call was coming from inside the house, except the house was their stomach, and the killer was the bread. You never figured it out. Neither did your children or their children's children. It took 600 years and the development of modern science before anyone made the connection. But eventually we got there. We figured out that the bread was the problem. We learned to test and treat and prevent. And that knowledge, accumulated slowly over centuries of suffering, is one of humanity's genuine achievements. We're only safe now because previous generations weren't. We learned from their suffering, their mistakes, their desperate attempts to find answers with the tools they had. So here's to Dr. Thuillier, who was right and got ignored. Here's to the monks who accidentally cured thousands while completely misunderstanding why. Here's to Hoffman and his legendary bicycle ride. Here's to every food safety inspector, grain tester, and agricultural scientist who's ever lived. And here's to you, sitting in 994 eating your breakfast bread, completely unaware that you're playing Russian roulette with a fungus. You never knew. You couldn't have known. But we know now. And that's something. If you've learned anything from this journey through ergot poisoning, it's that modern life is genuinely miraculous. Your bread isn't trying to harm you. Your breakfast won't make you see demons. Your morning toast will not cause you to lose fingers or dance uncontrollably in the street. These are legitimate improvements over medieval times that we should probably appreciate more. Medieval people were doing their best. They prayed. They tried every remedy they could think of. They built hospitals, they documented symptoms meticulously. They just didn't have the framework to understand that the answer was sitting on their dinner table the entire time. They were living in a mystery where everyone was trying to solve it, and it turned out the culprit was the bread. Nobody saw that coming. The real heroes are the people who suffered through centuries of this nightmare, and the researchers who eventually figured out what was happening. It took observation, patience, documentation, and the development of scientific thinking to solve a mystery that had tormented Europe for a millennium. We owe them everything, including our ability to eat rye bread without worrying about accidentally tripping or having problems. Thanks for joining me on this deep dive into one of history's most widespread and bizarre medical mysteries. If you enjoyed learning about why you should be deeply grateful for modern food safety, hit that like button and subscribe for more historical nightmares with happy endings. Drop a comment telling me what historical mystery you'd like me to tackle next, and whether you'll ever look at bread the same way again. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm going to go thank every food safety inspector who's ever lived, appreciate modern agriculture, and maybe stick to wheat bread for a while. The bread is safe now. We figured it out. It only took 600 years, thousands of unnecessary challenges, and one Swiss chemist's accidental bicycle trip, but we got there eventually. Stay safe, stay curious, and remember, the past was absolutely wild, and we're incredibly lucky to live in an era where our biggest breakfast concern is whether we're out of coffee, not whether our toast will make us hallucinate angels. Modern problems are so much better than medieval ones. Also, your bread is fine, I promise, probably.